Welcome back to StikFish. Thanks again for coming back to the channel. A little bit different video today. We're shooting in the office, and then we'll kind of mix it up. We're going to be in the boat a little bit, talking about some stuff, and then we'll be out on the water. This trip was about at the beginning of the month. We focused on bluegills again. They're starting to move up to spawn. They weren't quite there, but you start to see the fish with eggs in them starting to show up. Really want to focus in on kind of that ultralight gear and the plastics today and the plastic selection. So before we jump into that, reminder, baby is coming any minute now. Future Steve here. Just a quick update. Baby was born on May 29th. She's very happy and healthy, and everybody's doing well. So we're going to be picking back up here pretty quickly once everybody's healed up. Little backstory behind the trip. Right before I left, I was in Sacramento for a meeting, came back down, was getting ready the night before, 11 o'clock. I walk around my trailer to do my normal trailer inspection before I, plan to go to bed so I can go out the next morning, and notice one of my bearing caps had come off. I just had my bearing serviced. It must have come off the previous trip, got water in the bearings. So long story short, 11 o'clock at night, we had to disassemble the full axle. Next morning, go pick up all the parts, put it back together. Well, in the process of that, I was hammering in a new bearing race because I replaced the whole thing. Unfortunately, I smashed my thumb, and so I was not very talkative. I think I said about 10 words all day that day fishing. I was just not in the mood to have a talk. I was in pain, but I really wanted to get some footage put together for you guys to make sure I could make this video and really share some of this information again. So this video, we're going to kind of focus on a handful of things. The first thing we're going to talk about is plastic selection. Again, this video is about fishing bluegills with plastics. These are trophy bluegill. We're getting 10 to 12 inch bluegill right now out of these schools, which is just absolutely insane. I mean, these are the types of bluegills where you cannot even get your hand on that fish, or hardly can even, grasp it in your hand. So these are pretty large size, but I really want to focus in on the types of plastics I use, my color selection, and some of the jigs that I use as well, that I pour. So we'll get into a little bit more detail on that and how that looks. Once we get there, we're going to jump into line selection. So line selection in this is very important. Controversial topic is forward facing. I know some of you hate it, some of you love it. It's a tool. I'm going to use every tool available to me. Once we get through that, we'll talk about the rigs. I tend to use two different types of rigs. I use a single rig, which I tend to use on 4-pound tests. I do that just because a lot of times I get around bass or striper, and I don't want to end up with broken lines. And then with a double rig, what ends up happening if you don't do what they call a donkey rig, or similar to a donkey rig where you put swivels so that one can slide, I tie them fixed, and you'll get two fish that'll grab on, they'll break the line on you. So we'll go through that rig, all those knots, how that gets tied. Once we get past that rig, we're going to go and do some fishing. So you'll get to see some of this in action, what it looks like. Fortunately, didn't record the forward facing on this one. Going to start doing that in the future. Need to get an iPad to just leave in the boat so that I can constantly screen mirror. And then we're going to close it out talking about what I think is hands down the best ultralight rod on the market, which is the Dobyns Trout and Panfish 7'9" 1-power spinning rod, which is the STP791. If you're on the boards, if you're anywhere out there, you've heard me talk about this rod. I've talked about it in every video I've done so far. I'm going to continue to talk about it. It just excels for everything from bass, bluegill, striper, trout, you name it, you can fish it. And even though it's rated 4 to 8, you can use 2 on it. It really does do well, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So let's go jump out into the boat and get this video. Thanks for jumping out into the garage with us. So want to talk about, we'll start with the jigs, and then we'll work our way through the plastics real quick. So basically, I'm running a couple different size jigs depending on water depth and how I want to set up my rig. But generally, it's somewhere between a 32nd of an ounce and an 1/8 of an ounce. So I have two different molds that I run. One, I can pour a 32nd, an 1/8, and a 16th, and then the other one is a 16th and a 3/32. The biggest difference between them, and I'll put those molds up on the screen right now, is the type of keeper, and I'll also put that up showing the jigs. On the regular round ball head jig, I actually tie my own bait keeper on, and I'll put a link up here in the ribbon bar to a video on how to do that as well. And then the other one is just a wire keeper, so it's part of the mold. Again, links to everything will be in the description. So those jigs are poured with a mustad fine wire hook. Also, we'll throw a picture of that up. I like the number 4. It holds the 2-inch baits really well. So I will actually pour different size jig heads with hooks that are not the recommended size per do it, just to get what I want out of it. So a little bit of a customization that it allows you to do and get exactly the product that you want for the type of fishing you're going to do. So then the plastics, I use 2 different types of plastics. I've mostly been using, as of recent, the Z-Man Baby Ballers. There's 2 specific colors I like. There's a pearl, and then there is the Purple Death, which is an interesting color because if I heard that name, I probably wouldn't buy it, but it's a translucent purple with some chartreuse in it. Mimics a bait fish really well. And then the other bait that I'm using is the 6 Sense Clobber Minnow, and I use it in a couple different colors. There's, I think it's a white eye or polar ice, salt and pepper, or milk money. I can't remember which one they call it. And then the Ghost Minnow. What I found is on my local lakes, I played with some brighter colors and I just wasn't getting the bites, but that's something you have to kind of test on your own water. So I tend to like those natural colors. They seem to get me more bites. So that's a breakdown of the jigs, everything that I'm doing. Let's jump into the fishing line. So talking about the fishing line, there's 2 different kites that I use specifically when I'm fishing these baits and these rigs. And that's a 4-pound and a 2-pound. So I will run a 4-pound braid, which is the Suffix Nano braid. And I'll run that to a 4-pound fluorocarbon leader. Now, one of the things that I do is I put about probably a 40 to 50 foot fluorocarbon leader on the front of my, that. And I do that because I don't want that braid, because it floats, to affect the sink rate of my jigs and how they fall. So I try to get away with as long of a fluorocarbon leader as I can. So that's one setup. Usually the 4-pound pole I'm throwing as a single, just because I'm fishing, aside from bluegill, I will fish striper, I will fish bass with it. And so I want something that's a little bit more stout than 2-pound. Now the other one that I use is 2-pound. So it's Suffix Nano Braid 2-pound. And I run a 2-pound fluorocarbon leader on that. My fluorocarbon that I'm running is P-Line soft fluorocarbon. I've always used P-Line. I don't know why. It's just worked for me. There's never been a reason to change it. I do play with some other ones, but in terms of being able to tie the FG knot, I actually found that line doesn't slide as much as like some of the higher end lines. I tried Tatsu in 4-pound tests and was having issues with it sliding in the knot. Braid the leader connection, like I mentioned, I tie an FG knot. I'm not gonna go through how to tie that on this video. I will put a link up here on a ribbon bar to a couple of the videos that I like, and I'll throw some links in the description as well to a couple different pages that have that. I wanna kind of talk about why I choose such a light line. You know, it's really important when you're tracking down these big bluegills in the lakes that we're in. We got real clear water and they're real skittish. So, I mean, I'm usually using forward facing because they're out deep and suspended. And I find that if I get my boat closer than about 40 feet to them, they start to move, and they move relatively quick once they start getting skittish. And so I want to be able to make that 60 to 75 foot, maybe 80 foot long casts. And that's why I tend to go to those lighter braids and those lighter leaders, because I want to be able to throw a long distance to hit those fish and be able to work it over the top of them without spooking them. Because the other problem you'll have is a lot of times you'll land right over the top of them. Even when they're down 20 feet, they notice it and they start to move. So you want to be able to make those long casts, get a little past them, and come back through them as well too. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about the rig. So I'm going to turn here and grab a couple things. This is my 4-pound test pole, and I'm gonna hold this up and hope that you can see it. But as you can see, it's a single jig rig. Again, I tie the dropper loop knot on it. I talked about that in my last video, and I'll throw that up here as well too. But as you can see, there's that little bit of a loop there. And what you want that for is you want that bait to rock in the water. So when it's going and it's looking like a minnow, it's gonna rock back and forth in the water and give it a more natural look than it just darting all over. It also allows it to hover a little better, so it tends to stay in the same spot. And that's usually my 4-pound test pole. That particular jig was a 3/32 ounce. On my bluegill pole, if I'm going solely after bluegills, this is 2-pound test. And what you'll see here is there's actually 2 jigs tied on. So this one happens to be a 3/32 and a 16th. A lot of times I'll go 16th and an 8th. But as you can see, I'll tie that dropper loop and then just leave a long tag end. And then about a foot to 18 inches down, I'll tie on a heavier jig. So this one 16th on the top, 3/32. Couple things here. One, it allows you to see if the fish are interested in different colors, right? You saw I'm running that pearl bait. This is that baby ballers, and I'm running the purple death on the bottom. So I can tell real quickly, do they like a color? Do they not like a color? The other thing is I like to go with that heavier weight on the bottom, so it kind of keels it down. So when it drops, it drops on an angle like this. So you've got a little bit of vertical separation between the two, and you don't run into any issues with them tangling or anything like that. So that's the rig that I like to tie. Again, I'll throw a link up in the top if it already hasn't shown on how to tie that I did that in a previous video. And you just want to apply that, like I said, with a long leader on the tag end or the loose end of it so that you can tie that second bait down on the bottom. About the rod choice. There's a lot of rods out there, but there is one rod that I think is just underrated and nobody talks about, and you've heard me talk about it if you're on the boards, and that is the STP791. So this rod, I pair it with a Stratic CI4 2500, the old FA series. It's a light reel. Balances out really well. I mean, right about there. So, I mean, this sucker is balanced as can be. Awesome rod. I mean, it's rated for 4 to 8 pound. This rod, don't believe the rating. It handles 2 pound like a dream. I mean, the flex on this rod is unbelievable. It casts really well. It's really good for shaking those lightweight baits. I use it for a lot of different applications, all the way down to like just a 32nd ounce trout jig. I've just found that this rod, it has a great tip to it. So if I remember correctly, the Sierra series had like a solid carbon tip to them, and then it changes over into the standard blank. That tip is super soft, but that rod shuts off relatively quick in comparison to like a lot of other ultralight rods that tend to be a little bit slower. And so it handles that light line really well. You know, a lot of it is just being able to set your drag. So that's why I love that Stratic. They just had a great drag on them. So, you know, you want to be able to set your drag appropriately, or you will snap lines if you get a little crazy. But once you get the feel of it and you find that combination of rod and reel that works like this one does, you know, your money. And like I said, this rod does everything from bass. I mean, you saw it in a previous video. I caught an 8 pound striper on that rod with 4 pound test. Handled it like a champ. You know, the biggest challenge you're going to have in the light line is just keeping them out of the snags and stuff like that. So, you know, I will put a link to that in the description. I thoroughly recommend you check out that specific rod. There's a couple other rods in that STP series that I play with. I will use like a 740 for live bait and stuff like that, which is a 0 power. But I'm telling you, this 7'9" power really shines for a lot of applications, both bass and panfish, as well as trout. So give that a look when you get a chance. And we're gonna wrap up this. Thanks again for joining us on this adventure here at StikFish. Again, today's video, a little different. Let me know what you thought of it. I definitely appreciate the comments and the people being involved. If you haven't checked us out on social media, we're on Facebook and on Instagram. So I will include links in the description to that. Any of the gear talked about today will be linked in the description as well. Before we get too far, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. If you like this video, share it with your friends. Again, really focusing in on trying to go more than just fish catching, but just really break down gear, talk about the things we use, why we use them, and some of that logic. If you like this video, don't forget to check out one of our other videos over here, and we'll see you on the next one.